Hello friends, welcome back to the channel, or if you are new here, welcome. I am super excited to be sharing today's video with you. I am going to be sharing some desserts that are perfect for the upcoming holidays. So these are primarily pies in this video. I do plan on sharing some other desserts, but I am focusing on the pies this week. And if you did not see my previous video, it is because I am responsible for making the pies for our very large Thanksgiving this year. My grandma usually does it every year. She does all the pies, and they are recipes that they have followed for years and years and years. However, she's going to be out of town this year, so I am going to be doing all of the pies for this Thanksgiving, and I'm actually really super excited. So today I'm going to be testing out some new recipes. I will be making some old recipes, but they are all super delicious and perfect for the upcoming holidays. I will have the recipes down below in the description box if you're wanting to make any of these for yourself. I am starting off today though with a chocolate cream pie, and this is I always call it the pudding layer. My grandmother, she makes this particular pie. However, she does not make the homemade whipped cream to go on top. She just does the traditional chocolate pie. So I am making the chocolate pudding layer is what I always call it, and it is basically just a thicker pudding layer. I did use dark chocolate for it. She does not traditionally use that, but I will be putting my recipe down below that I followed in today's video. I also made these, a couple of different crusts. I pre-made them, so you will not see me in today's video making the crust. Some of them you will, but some of them I mostly pre-made. So I did make a graham cracker crust, and I have that I'm putting the chocolate pudding layer in, and then I will go over and make the homemade whipped cream that I will top it with. This homemade whipped cream has quickly become one of my very favorite things this week. It is incredibly easy and really, really delicious. My kids were eating it right out of the container most of the week whenever I had it in the fridge, but I did use it in several different recipes. It is a little bit more expensive if you're making it by itself than if you were buying it just like the Cool Whip in the freezer section. I think the Cool Whip's like $1 or $2, and then for a quart of it in my store, it's like $6 for the heavy whipping cream. So it is a little bit more pricey to do it from scratch, but man, if you have those ingredients on hand, it sure is delicious. So for that, all I did was put 2 cups of heavy whipping cream into the mixer, and I whipped it until it was not this solid, but it was thickening up. And then I added in 3/4 a cup of powdered sugar, and then I mixed it until there was these solid peaks. I ended up making this whipped cream several times this week because it ended up being such a hit. So I made it for the chocolate cream pie, and I'll put like chocolate shavings over top, but it was such a huge hit that people wanted to top their pies that I made throughout the week. So I ended up making another batch. People used it for that. My daughter ended up using it to top her coffees in the afternoon. It was such a big hit, and I did have I used whatever was left over to make a whipped cheesecake that you'll see a little later in the video. So I used a good portion of the whipped cream that I made to put over top of the chocolate layer. The chocolate layer was set in the fridge for about an hour before I put on the whipped cream. So it was completely set, and I did not use all of the whipped cream. You definitely could. I've seen people put a huge mountain over top of this, and I'm sure it's delicious, but I did probably majority of the whipped cream, just not all of it. And then Theo was so nice, and he gave me a Hershey bar from his trick-or-treating bag. because I forgot to get a Hershey bar to shave at the store for over top of it. So he gave me a Hershey bar and I put the shavings over top, and it was the perfect touch for this chocolate cream pie. The next recipe we're going to be making is what I call a Reese's pie. I've been making this recipe for years and years and years. This is truly a family favorite, and it started out because I made it for my brother years and years ago. He is a huge Reese's fan, and this quickly became one of his favorites. My kids ask for it now. This has kind of been a staple. For a while, I ended up making it, even though people weren't actually asking for it, because my brother passed away, and I kind of made it just because I was used to making it for him. And so I continued to make it, and now it has really been like a tradition for Thanksgiving, and most people that are Reese's lovers absolutely love this pie. So it kind of starts with a peanut butter layer. I did do a Oreo cookie crust for it, and that is in the pie pan, and it is just resting in the fridge while I get the rest of this going. So I will have the recipe down below, but basically you will start with some cream cheese, a block of cream cheese that's softened. You put in some peanut butter. I put in a package of vanilla pudding. You mix that together really well, and then you can use the mixer to mix this. However, I always fold in the whipped cream, so I am pretty much just folding in the whipped cream. I don't know if that makes any difference. It's just something that I have always done throughout the years, is just fold in the whipped cream into that peanut butter mixture. Then once you have that all folded in, you'll put that into your Oreo pie crust, and then we will make the chocolate topping to go over top. Now this mixture, I usually will use a larger pie crust, but I had one of these like disposable ones left over, so I went ahead and used that, but it's a lot smaller than like my pie pans. So usually it will make a large pie if you're using like a large pie pan, or for these, I would say it makes 2 of these smaller like pie tins. So I put in about half of that mixture into this, and then what I did was, because I did not have another Oreo crust that I made, I went ahead and I just put it in a Tupperware, and my kids just dipped graham crackers in it. So it ended up working out well. We ended up using all of it, but just know if you are making this and you're using these pie tins, you can actually make 2 pies out of it. For the chocolate layer, you are going to melt down some chocolate bars, and I had forgotten initially, but you also add in about a tablespoon of the whipped cream into the chocolate mixture, and you melt them down together and kind of stir them up, and then you'll pour it over top. Now it usually hardens, but not to like a candy, like, you know, like chocolate covered strawberries, it's hardened. I never have that. It's more just like a thick chocolate layer. So then once that is all spread over the pie, then I melt down a couple tablespoons of peanut butter and I drizzle it over the top. That is completely optional. You do not have to add that, but it is something I always add. As you can see, the next pie that we're going to be doing is a traditional pumpkin pie. Now, I feel like most of the recipes are very, very similar for this. I will put the recipe that I used down below in the description box in case you're wanting to try it out. So I do realize that pumpkin pies are so traditional. Everybody makes them. They are a huge favorite and pretty much a must at Thanksgiving. However, I have never been a fan, and this is actually the very first one I was making, and I was kind of intimidated by it. So like I said, I'll put the recipe down below in the description box, but I have to put this note in there for it. So the recipe that will be down below is actually for 4 pumpkin pies. So I am halving that recipe, and it made 2 full pumpkin pies, like large pumpkin pies. So just be cautionary of that if you follow the recipe down below, it is for 4, and that just seems like a huge amount. The ingredients, it really didn't seem like very much. Like I said, I halved it and it did not seem like very much, but yeah, I was kind of like shocked that it made 4, and I'm like, oh, I do not need 4 at all. While I'm mixing in all the ingredients for this, I'm curious, what are some of your guys' favorites that you always have to have for your Thanksgiving meal? Do you always have a pumpkin pie? Like, do you have a dessert that is specific to your guys' family that every single year it is a must at your Thanksgiving table? I think most of the things that I made in this video are a usual thing at our Thanksgiving dinners. We usually have several people at Thanksgiving, and so a lot of desserts and pies are made. We always have pumpkin. I'm not sure if they're always homemade. I think they usually are. Like I said, I'm not usually in charge of the desserts, so I believe they're usually homemade. There might be like a couple store-bought things, but for the most part, I think my grandma makes the pumpkin pies. Like I said, she doesn't usually do like the whole whipped cream on top of the chocolate pie. She usually makes several just plain chocolate pies, and those are one of the first things that go on Thanksgiving. I don't know if we usually have apple pies. I will be making an apple pie, and I'm trying to still perfect that recipe. It ended up turning out really well, but we'll talk about it when we get there. But anyway, we usually have like an apple pie or some type of fruit pies, and I always make the Reese's pie, so we generally have the same stuff, and it will be interesting this year because I'm a little nervous, to be completely honest, because like I said, my grandma usually makes all of the pies. Hers are known in our family, and so I'm a little intimidated because my recipes, some of them are like pretty much basically hers, but they also are slightly different. So I'm hoping that they all go over really well, but we will see. So I had 2 of these pie crusts. I actually got the deep pie crust. So these are not just the traditional size pie crust, they're the deeper shell one. I bought them at the store because they were actually on sale for half off. So instead of making them, I went ahead and bought them. And I poured the pumpkin mixture into them and then put them in the oven. While that is going in the oven, I am making some more of that homemade whipped cream to put on top. Here's how they ended up turning out, and I was pretty excited that they turned out. I don't know why I was so nervous about it. It's just one of those things that you just have to start it, and then you kind of figure out that, wow, there's like really nothing to it. It's not that big of a deal, and this was kind of that situation. I was very nervous about not doing it right, and then it ended up turning out fabulous, so I was pretty excited about that. This next dessert is a whipped cheesecake. This was something that I kind of just threw together really quickly because I had the ingredients for it and I wanted to use them up. So I had a graham cracker crust that I needed to use up, and I didn't really have another recipe for it. So I went ahead and I am using in this. So that was the leftover whipped cream that I had left after the pumpkin pie. So I needed a little bit more for this whipped cheesecake, so I'm adding in a little bit more, and I'll just use that all together. Now, this is the first time I'm making this particular cheesecake. I usually will buy I think it's Jiffy, or maybe it's Jello, the Jello brand cheesecake like mix, and you can mix it yourself. They have all the ingredients and it's pretty easy. It's pretty good if you're wanting just like a cheesecake that you don't have to bake or anything. But I found that this recipe is really, really easy, probably easier than that one even. So from now on, and it tastes pretty similar too. So from now on, I actually will be making this one instead of that one. And I was excited to find that replacement. Basically, all this is it is the whipped cream. There's a couple cups of whipped cream that you add to the mixing bowl. I added in some sugar, cream cheese, vanilla, and I believe that was it. Again, I'll have the recipe down below if you are wanting to try it. I mixed that up until it was nice and fluffy, and then I'm just going to plop it down in this pie crust, and then I'll let it set in the fridge until we're ready to eat it. But this turned out delicious. It was super quick, super easy. It was using up the ingredients that I had remaining from other pies, and I mean, it's just so easy that if you have leftover ingredients, this is a no-brainer to do. My family is usually pretty big with cheesecakes of different varieties, so a lot of times we'll have like these cheesecakes brought for just, it's an easy thing to throw together. So it's very quick, and if you need like a last minute dessert to bring to somewhere, this is a really good option. And my mom will usually have like different fruits and stuff laid out next to these, so people can have just the plain cheesecake if they want, or there are other toppings that you can add to it, and they just pair so nicely with this. This next recipe is a apple pie, and I have made this before. However, I'll let you know there's been a little bit of a debate maybe with the pie crust. So I am starting with making the pie crust, and you're gonna see I ended up cutting it off because I was getting very frustrated. I usually make my own pie crust, and I know there are a ton of different recipes for pie crust. I usually use the ones with butter in them. And however, whenever I was getting all the recipes together and I was talking to my family members about the pies and stuff that I would be making, they were very adamant that it had to be my grandma's recipe for the pie crust. And I was like, okay, sure, I've made those in the past, but it has been a very, very long time. And what they were very adamant about was the oil here. They said instead of butter, it had to be oil. I'm curious if other people are insistent on, I'm not one that really loves pies, so I don't really care. However, like, are you one, have you heard of this? Is it oil that is way more like softer? Because that's what my aunt and my mom were saying, that it could not be the butter. That's like a thicker crust. It had to be the oil because it was lighter. So anyway, they were very adamant about this, and so I am trying to do my best for my grandma's pie crust, and it ended up not working out. And then I resorted to my own pie crust. So anyway, I have since worked out the kinks. I just, when I was filming, I had not, and I even brought my daughter in, and I'm like, what am I doing wrong? Is it just me, or what is going on? And I couldn't get a hold of anyone to find out what I was doing wrong with this pie crust. I just knew that they were very insistent on the oil. So when I put hers together, it did not work. So then I went and I put together my pie crust that I usually make. However, instead of the butter, I did oil. And again, it did not work. And so I'm like, man, it is the oil that is throwing this off, because I've made other pie crusts before and they were not working with the oil. I couldn't roll them out. It was almost like that sand stuff that kids play with. I forgot what it's called. Kinetic sand, maybe? I think that's what it is. But it was like that. And I'm like, why is this not rolling out? I know people do this. So anyway, I ended up figuring it out. So for my next pies, I will be able to do my grandmother's crust, and it was as simple as using parchment paper. That's the key thing I was missing. So I am glad to have figured that out, and I'll be able to make the pies that my family are used to and are preferring. So I will be doing that. But in this, I went ahead and I just did the usual pie crust that I usually do with like the butter that's cut up into it, and then you kind of work it into a ball. I divided the dough into two, and then so I could have a bottom crust, and then I did like a lattice crust over top. I don't usually do the lattice, and I think for whenever I do it with my grandmother's crust, I'll probably just have like the sheet over top and then like cut holes into it. It'll be easier for that whenever I'm making all of the desserts for Thanksgiving. But I wanted to do a lattice crust. I don't know what it is. I love making pies because you can be so creative with it and just have a lot of fun with it. And I think even though I don't really care to eat them, it is so much fun to create them. So anyway, I did a lattice crust, and I am making an apple pie. It is something my husband has asked for several weeks now. Like I don't even think it was like he's been asking for like since the summer. So I'm like, okay, sure, I will make a apple pie. He really wanted it with some vanilla ice cream, so I was making him an apple pie basically for him, and this ended up turning out very, very good. I'm pretty happy with this recipe, and this will be one that I do for Thanksgiving as well. So going back to, what recipes do you have for Thanksgiving? I'm curious because I'm wanting some more like fruit pie recipes to bring to Thanksgiving, and I would love some ideas for that. I think last year I did not do all the pies, but I brought a couple, I think, and I brought the Reese's like I usually do, but I brought also like a fruit pie and like a mixed berry or something. And I think there was so many pies that it was just overwhelming, but not a lot of people had it. I don't think a lot of people love mixed berry, and so people were a little like, oh, I don't know if I want to try that or not. I think it ended up turning out good, but like I said, there was so many different pies, and I want to bring like a fruit pie other than an apple, but I'm not really sure what to do. I would love some suggestions. What are some pies that you always have on your Thanksgiving table? Because I really could use some suggestions, some ideas that I could do for mine. So I am adding the zest of 1 lemon. I added that, and then I'm going to cut the lemon in half and use about 2 tablespoons of the juice from the lemon to put into this apple pie. This mixture also made 1 really large apple pie, or if you're using the tins, it would probably make 2. My pie containers, my pie pans, they are really, really big. I feel like they're a lot bigger than the tins. So if you were using the tins, this would make probably 2 apple pies, but for my really large pie pan, this only made 1 large apple pie. Now that I have the apples all diced up, the mixture all put together, I'm going to be putting that mixture into my pie crust, and then I will roll out the other pie crust and cut it. And like I said, I did a lattice crust over top. You absolutely do not have to do that. That was just kind of a preference that I wanted to do for this one. Once you have a pie crust over top of your apples, whatever crust that may be, you'll then make an egg wash and brush it over top of the entire top. So get the sides and everything like that. You want it to completely cover. And it is optional if you want to sprinkle sugar over top. I don't usually do that, but I did for this time, and I don't know. Like I said, I don't really eat these, so I don't know if it made much of a difference. I'll have to ask my husband because he was really excited about this pie, and he ended up saying that it turned out great. My mom gave some of the pie to some family members, and they loved it too, so the pie did end up turning out really great. I don't know, though, if the sugar over top really makes much of a difference. I know it looks pretty once it's done. It kind of adds that little sparkly effect, but you do not have to do that if you're not wanting to. After I pop that into the oven to bake, I have talked about making these before, and it appears that it is very common in other families. My grandmother always takes the random pieces of pie crust that is left, and I don't know if she actually puts the egg wash over top. I did just because I didn't know. And then she will sprinkle cinnamon sugar over top and bake them until they're a little crispy, not, you know, dark or anything, but crispy. And my family loves these. Like, they are a huge thing. And it's not really the dessert, like she doesn't put these out. They do not make it that far in my family. She takes them out of the oven, and it's mostly her kids, like the siblings. They all will sit there and eat all these, and it is one of those just little random things, but it is something that they do every year. So I put the egg wash over the scraps of pie crust that were left over, and then I sprinkled them with cinnamon and sugar, and I'll pop them in the oven just until they're nice and toasted, and it'll be a nice little treat. This is how the apple pie turned out. It was nice and bubbly, and oh my gosh, the aroma in my house was incredible. It just smelled like cinnamon and apples. It smelled amazing. But anyway, this is all I have for you today. Thank you so much for hanging out with me and baking as I shared some of our family favorites for Thanksgiving. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.